What is up, everybody? I'm Dr. Ray Gorman, physical therapist and owner of Engage Movement, company that helps coaches and rehab professionals really diversify their offer and take a lot of what they're doing in person and bring it online. And I am joined today by a great client and also someone who's obviously become a friend over our time working together, Dr. Meghan Sak-Ocbina. Make
Mhm.
sure I got that right.
Yep, good
From
job.
Impetus Movement and Perform and Rehab out in Oregon, Washington.
Yeah, I'm like 45 minutes south of Seattle, but I work with people all over, so it's kind of relevant.
Yes, Washington, but from anywhere, which makes kind of our journey together unique. Most of you watching this, though, may know her better as Dr. Megsy on Instagram. So, Megan, thank you so much for taking the time, joining me, and sharing your story. Why don't you start with just like a little background of who you are, what you do, and we can kind of take the convo from there.
Yeah, sounds good. I'll try to keep it brief. I usually don't do a good job of that on
We
these.
got we got time.
Okay, cool. So my name is Megan, also known as Megsy. I actually never go by Megsy, but if you want to call me that, feel free. I am obviously a physical therapist. I'm also a strength and conditioning coach and a certified athletic trainer. I had kind of a roundabout way of becoming a PT. I initially thought that I wanted to work college sports. So of course I went and got a master's in athletic training, worked college sports, realized that lifestyle wasn't really for me, and then just got kind of burned out and felt very limited in my athletic training profession. And so I decided to go back to school. I went to Baylor, their hybrid program, which is 2 years long. And then before I even started that, I knew just as someone I have a very holistic health sort of mindset and also a strength and conditioning background. So I kind of knew that I didn't want to stay in that like insurance world,
Yeah.
PT mill. I knew I wasn't going to wind up there, at least not for long. But I wasn't really sure like how I was going to get into my like cash wellness. So it's sort of one of those things where you're like, okay, well, that's a
I
later
know
tomorrow.
I know what I want, but how do I actually get there?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah,
So I was like, okay, well, I'll just put it off and go through PT school. That'll distract me for a little
sure.
bit. So went through PT school. Before PT school, I've been personal training on the side for a really long time, and it was peak pandemic. So I actually had started online training,
Yeah.
um, very like part-time, because I was still working full-time, and then in school, full-time job, as most people are probably listening, they're
Sure.
probably these, it's pretty intense. But I continued to do a little bit of online coaching, and then when I went into clinical, I actually started just like selling a couple of 12-week programs that seemed to do really well. And that kind of comes up later. So I'll tell you guys a little bit more about that. But yeah, so I graduated. I took a job at my last clinical rotation, which was a really good like private practice,
Yeah.
one-on-one 40-minute time intervals, which isn't like super long. But as far as like private practice, insurance-based clinics go, it was a really good choice for me. And it was around that time. I don't remember how I started talking to Tyler. I think we followed each other for a while. Tyler Khaleesi, is that how you
Yep.
say it?
Yes, correct.
Tyler
Correct.
Khaleesi, who was also a product slash client of Ray, and I believe he's now working with Ray. He
And very similar, like you guys have very similar stories too. So it was really cool to see kind of both of you go through the program at similar times.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, both kind of online coaching, but didn't know
Yeah.
how to, like make it a thing of our own. So yeah, I was talking to him, and I knew that I like eventually wanted to go off on my own. I wasn't even thinking about online whatsoever.
Yeah.
But then I something crazy happened in social media world, and I got all these followers, and I had like all these inquiries to work with me. And this is a month after I took my boards. Like
Yeah.
this is right. It's like fresh new grad, like just took this job, like trying to get my feet under me, still have huge like imposter syndrome, which never goes away. We can also talk about that. But anyway, I was like, I should probably do something with this. Like, this is probably going to be a thing. And so Tyler was like, you should reach out to Ray. Reached out to Ray, connected. I think you went to like Europe or something, so we kind of had like a delay.
Yeah.
And then had our next call, and like, you told me what the investment was, and I was like, well, I don't know when else I'm gonna make this happen. And I feel like forking over a large chunk of money is probably a good way to make myself do it. So I was like, all right, sign me up, let's do this. Um, so I started working with Ray, and I believe it was either April or March last year. I don't remember.
I think it was March. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been like over,
Yeah.
over a year and a half that we've
Yes.
that we've worked together in some capacity.
Yeah. We weaned me off kind of slow. I don't know what
Yeah.
normal is, but yeah, it took me a while for
As
sure.
long as people need. And it's not because you weren't doing well. It was just because we had things to work on and things to grow on. And I do say this all the time. I think it's something I said to you, but like when I have a coach, like I just generally do better. And I think a lot of people tend to be hesitant about hiring coaches, consultants, whatever you want to call it. But there is a level of accountability that I think comes in when you know you have a call on the books and I know I want to show up and talk about something. It kind of keeps me accountable to keeping my business up and running. So it's not uncommon that clients work with us for, extended periods of time beyond um, the performance provider growth model, which was what you kind of started in. But yeah, like what did you feel like was kind of going on at that point that you were like, hey, I've got some good bones here, but I
Yeah.
feel like I feel like I need some support on it. What was kind of going on there?
Yeah. So as far as like I was getting all these inquiries, obviously, and I didn't have all this time because I was working full
Yeah,
time. So I feel like the biggest problems for me, like the biggest things that was like stopping me from just being like, okay, bye, I'm gonna quit and go start my own thing was like self-belief, which I
yeah,
think comes from in large part because I had literally just graduated, even though I had a lot of experience before, just like working with people, like communication skills are a huge part of PT, and like I
sure.
definitely established those. It was just like I hadn't had the reps as a PT. So self-belief was huge. Systems, like I had like even though I'd been coaching online, I wasn't like doing it in like a larger capacity. So I didn't have like really solid systems established. Just for like onboarding and kind of like how the journey of my client
Client
would.
journey.
Yes, exactly. Because I just like I didn't start it with that intent. I kind of just was like, okay, well, we'll just do this because it's working and people want it. So I'll figure it
Yeah.
out. So like, I don't know. I mean, there's lessons learned. I can help people in that way, I
I,
guess.
I promise you are not alone in most of the people that come to us in that state. It's very common. So for those of you out there listening, like if you feel like, oh, that's me too, like yes, it's you and 90% of the other people who come to us.
Yes. Yeah, you just can't quit. And then the final thing is definitely sales. Like
Yeah.
I can sell myself on accident all day, every day, which is a great, like that's a great problem to have. But then if you want like me to ask you for money, I'll be like, oh no, like let me help you for free. Like,
Yeah.
or let me pay you. Let me pay you to help me. Like I'm literally that bad at sales. And they just feel like so icky to me. And like, I don't know. We can talk about my transformation with sales that I literally just messaged Ray about yesterday because it's just like it doesn't feel like sales to me. It's necessary in order to like have a business that flows, but like I think there was just something that clicked at one point and it took me like a year for me to
Yeah.
like, have those reps, have like I was telling you yesterday, like make some pudding. So the proof is in the pudding. Like I have people
Yeah.
that I've helped, I have the feedback for all these individuals. And I've also people also like I remember you told me once he was like charge something that you are borderline uncomfortable with.
Yeah. 100%.
And at the time, I was like, why? Why would I do that? And then when I didn't do that, and then I got burned by people not valuing what I was offering, so they like
Hmm.
didn't show up for their appointment or they like totally ghosted me. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to bill them before their visit. I'm going to charge what I am actually worth. And if they don't want to pay for it, that's okay. Like someone will. And also, me personally, like when I like go get a massage or when I go like I don't know, do something for self-care or like something that I genuinely am like seeking out this provider specifically. I mean, like working with you, like I was like, okay, that's like a lot of money, but also like
Hmm.
I value this
Yeah.
product. And you value it more, like what you put into it is going to be what you get out of it a lot of the time. When it comes to this kind of thing, like self-investment. Obviously it's a little different with getting a massage.
I,
You know,
I, I think you
some
bring
people
up
do
a
it, but you value it,
I think you bring up a couple good points there, though. It's like all these things kind of, these little traits kind of tie into what I see when people have this aversion to sales. One, you mentioned that there's like this lack of self-belief, right? This like, can I do it? So, how does that come across to your consumer? It comes across as like a little bit of a lack of confidence, clarity, conviction.
Mhm.
Two, I think that a lot of people have been conditioned to think about money in a very scarce minded way. And one of the things that we often hear, especially physical therapists say is like, well, I wouldn't pay that for my services. But that's also because like you're the one consuming it. Like you have absolutely no need to pay for that service because you possess the knowledge. So therefore, the knowledge is less valuable for you from somebody else.
Mhm.
Um, and third is I think a poor understanding of the sales process and what the sales process is supposed to feel like.
Mhm.
And if you are going through a sales process with a company and you don't like the way that they're selling to you, you're probably not going to like the way that you're taught to sold to sell, right? Um, I think one of the things that we try to implement for engage movement is like we want our sales process to feel really safe for the person that we're having the conversation with. We want it to feel very organic. We want it to feel very natural, but like end of the day, like we're still using structure, we're still using some scripting, but it doesn't have to feel that way when you really understand the whole journey.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's like doing an eval. Like if you understand why you're doing something, it's a lot easier
Bingo.
to be intuitive about it. Yeah. And like you said, like scripting, yes, but also like I've learned how like I get excited to go on discovery calls now because I want to talk to this human being that is in front of me that just has
Yeah.
struggling with something that I might be able to help with. And like it's like I'm like excited to tell them like, okay, well, this is how much it would cost. Like I'm really excited if you are like let's do this. Like these are the options, you know? So it's kind of like instead of like the thing that is just looming over me the entire call, which is how it used to be, I'm just like, this is literally just a part of it that is necessary to get to what this person needs. And it's ultimately up to them. And I think a while ago you told me like disconnect from the outcome.
Yeah.
At the time, that made absolutely no sense. I was like, but that's like what matters is that they sign up, right? Like they got to pay me. Like that is an important part. But once I kind of like realize that they're no matter what, like not everyone is going to be a good fit, and that's fine. That's actually
Yeah.
good. Like I'd rather like lukewarm is no good. I don't want to be everyone's perfect fit because I mean, if they're already hesitant about it, like if they're not bought in, then it's probably not going to work very well anyway. So I think that disconnecting from the outcome is really liberating. And it was interesting how it worked is because as soon as I did that, it was like things got way easier. And it was like you can sense someone's energy.
Counterintuitive.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense until you feel it. But for anyone out there who is listening and hates sales like me, like you're probably a good person. That's probably why.
Yeah.
And it's okay. It's just a necessary part of it's like people understand like supporting a small business and actually like being able to help people. Like they obviously there's a trade that has to happen. It has to be money. So
And I think just like for those of you listening, when Megan says disconnect from the outcome, I think what happens and a lot of time in novice sales, people is we think that like like this person has all these problems. It's a no-brainer that they would say yes. And so we're sitting there and we present our offer, we, present the investment and then they have hesitancy and we're shocked
mhm.
that they didn't say yes. So like some of the things that I like to do is just like I'm expecting everybody to say no because I'd way rather be shocked when somebody says yes rather than be on my heels when somebody says no.
Yes.
And that helps me kind of also prepare for like what objections do I think people are going to have when I get to that point, and the more that you have these sales conversations, the more that you realize like the only reason people are giving you objections is really because like they're honestly, I think, just scared to change the person that they are today because there's an identity shift that is about to happen when they make this commitment, right?
Yes. It's also like when you commit to taking things into somewhat into your own hands and trying to make a change, there's always this risk that you'll fail.
Yeah,
And
you have to do the work.
yeah, I mean, it's just like starting a business. Like I was like,
Yep.
okay, well, all up to me now. Like it's not up to my boss because I'm my boss and I'm my employee and I'm my everything.
Judge,
So
jury, executioner, no
yeah,
doubt. Yeah.
yeah, which is just like it can be it's scary, but again, that's it's kind of like you confidence comes from the work. Like you're
Yeah.
not going to be confident before you do the work. You're going to have to do the work. You're going to have to do things without feeling like your ducks in a row. You're going to have to do things without feeling like you know what the hell you're doing. And then on the
Yes.
side, you will be more confident, as a business owner. Like I feel like I mentioned this to you one time. I remember I was like, I'm stressed when I'm busy and I'm stressed when I'm not busy. And that's the reality of being an entrepreneur. Like that's just how it's going to
Yeah.
be for the rest of my life. And that's okay. Like that's an opportunity. Like you could say that as like glass half full. Like either way, it's like you have more free time. Great. Spend it with your family or
Yeah.
something.
It's
Okay.
hard to do that.
It is really hard because you always want, especially as someone who is like a go-getter, you're like, I got to move. I got to keep going.
Y-
Um, but
y-
then if you're really busy, it's like, okay, this is a blessing. Like this is a season.
I asked for this.
Yes, I asked for this. I signed
Yeah.
up for this. I have the capacity to deal with this. Like, do I need to change some sort of my efficiency? Do I need to have more boundaries? Like, and I think again, it's like as I get deeper into this, like I have less problems telling people like I don't see clients on this day.
Yep.
I'm sorry, that's not going to work. Like, let's make something else work. And if they can't, then that's okay. And usually, 9 times out of 10, they're like, okay, no, I can make this work.
No
And
big deal. Like you just established the boundary and they're good.
yeah, and I am that person that's like always trying to like take care of everyone else, and also
Yeah.
myself. And so a lot of the time myself doesn't get taken care of because I like am trying to take care of everyone else. I'm learning, getting better at being more selfish with my time.
Yeah, that's what this is all about. You brought up a couple good points in there that I want to kind of point out. And one of them is like the concept of implementation.
Mhm.
And I think the biggest thing for people out there is like you're never going to know everything to do before you do it. You're going to figure out what to do by doing the thing. And I think a lot of times we see this, especially I think in the PT realm, that like one, we deal with a lot of academically high achievers where, structurally on a test, it's very much like black and white.
Mhm.
But then when you get out in the real world, it's like, but there's a lot of gray area.
Yes.
And you can ask questions that's like, well, what do I do if this comes up? Well, what do I do if that comes up? Well, you can ask an infinite number of those questions, but there's always going to be a scenario that comes up that you're not prepared for. And the question is, do you have a filtering mechanism to understand how to react to that scenario? So, like, people always ask me, how do I get the most value out of coaching? And it's you have to take what we talk about in our calls and you have to go feel like an idiot doing it.
Mhm.
Like you have to go fumble through it
Yep.
so that when we meet next, you can say, okay, I did it. Here's what happened. And now I can coach you.
Yeah.
I can't coach you if you say, well, let's talk about all the potential outcomes that would happen. No, no, no. That's not how life works. It's not how business works. Like I need you to actually feel it, experience it, understand why that happened when you said this, when you said that.
Mhm. Yep. Again, I'm seeing more analogies to like when we're starting PT school and we start doing fumbling through our evals.
Yeah.
No, it's
The
so
same
simple.
thing.
Once you get the reps, once you look like an idiot, once
Now you can do them in your sleep, right? It's like
yeah.
because what happened was over time you developed a process. You
Mhm.
developed a rationale. You developed understanding for why you're asking the questions that you're asking, why you're collecting the data that you're collecting, what the flow of the evaluation is going to be. And sometimes you're going to be like, "Huh, that didn't flow well.
Mhm.
Maybe I need to switch these two things. Maybe I need to ask a different question that gives me a different answer." And I think that's one of the reasons why like I like working with PTs and coaches with the strength background is because like really when you boil it down, all this stuff is just what we do every day. It's variable manipulation. We can manipulate the words that we say, the order that we say it, the speed that we say it, the tone that we say it, the structure of, the content that we send our clients through the journey. It is all to get this outcome of getting somebody to commit to changing their situation. And it's really just, when you boil it down, very simply, it's just variable manipulation. And I'm
Mhm.
the coach helping you figure out which variables to manipulate to get a different outcome.
Yes. Yeah. And when it's working with clients, especially in like the online setting, there's so many. I mean, the subjective, we all know this. The subjective is like the most important part of the
Yeah.
eval. So like while yes, you can't put your hands on most of your clients if you're doing their rehab remotely, there's like there once you get good at asking those questions and like looking at the whole picture, that whole person, their whole stress bucket, like it really
Yeah.
starts to come together and you can just like sometimes just getting people to have better sleep hygiene. Like, oh, your chronic back pain went away after 20 years. Crazy.
Well,
Check.
and when you're in a traditional setting, you can get away with a very basic surface level subjective. You really can, right? Because there's generally a different pipeline of the way somebody got there. There's generally different reasons for why somebody's there, the referral system. And there's also a third party payer. Like, a lot of times they're not having to really buy in with
Mhm.
their own monetary resource, right? They're using something. Now we can get into another conversation about what a deductible is, but
Yeah.
like, there's this perception that, like, oh, my insurance is taking care of this. So we just can kind of stay surface level. And I think that that's really important for people out there listening. If you feel like you're struggling in your sales process, a lot of the times we just help people get a little deeper in that subjective portion. Now, when we started working together, you were at that point, you were in the clinic,
Mhm.
you're primarily online, but then like you kind of went backwards from how most of our clients kind of operate. Usually we teach clients the in-person part first, and then
Mhm.
we layer on the virtual component, which is not just building a virtual business for those of you listening. It is a virtual component that complements your in-person process. For you, it was like we actually had this unique route where it was, hey, let's actually use the virtual side of your business to buffer a time leverage solution, get you into the in-person component. Talk about that transition for you a little bit.
Yeah. So, like I said before, I was already doing some one-on-one remote coaching. And at this point, I was like, I mean, I was working full time. So I was
Yeah.
doing all of my like client update programming on the weekends. So, like, I was grinding big time.
Yeah.
Same thing with during school. Like, when I wasn't studying, I was programming for clients. But when my social media like blew up, basically, again, I was getting all these inquiries that like I mean, I still have a wait list. Like, I
Yeah.
we're still working on the infrastructure to address all of that. But luckily, what I ended up kind of having happen was I essentially told my job, like I basically had like a big sale on one of my programs and I made a lot of money that I was like, okay, I should like I can do this. Like I I'm always gonna have these doubts. I need to just freaking do it. I need to decide to do it because if I jump, then there's sink or swim. So I basically told my boss, I was like, hey, like there's absolutely like one of my coworkers who was also my CI and was amazing. Like I loved the people I worked with. That made it really
Sure.
hard to leave. She actually had to go on emergency maternity leave because she had her twins really early. And so that literally happened right when I decided I was gonna leave. And I was like, okay, I need to like, and Ray kind of was like, you need to just tell me you're gonna leave. But I was like, I can't. I need to just like pull the band-aid off slowly. Like I told them there's no rush, but like I just want you to know I am leaving.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna work for myself, and so I can kind of pace it differently. But like I just want you to know, like I'm gonna be gone by the end of this year, and like slowly work down to like 3 days a week, then 2 days a week, then 1 day a week, and then that 1 day a week they wanted me to do like indefinitely, but it just didn't really make sense at that point. So I ended up cutting the cord. But I have a really good relationship with them still.
Yeah.
But basically, what ended up happening was so I was doing more online coaching as my hours went down one on one. And then I was also just kind of promoting my programs that are not personalized more. My social media had grown at that point pretty strongly. And I'm getting better at like just letting people know of what I do because people can follow you for a long time and have no idea that they like for a product.
You got to keep pounding the pavement
I
on the
know.
message.
I
A
know.
hundred percent.
I never want to be redundant, but I do. And then I'm like,
You
oh,
need to be. You need to
Never
be.
got this message.
Yeah.
Yeah, every day I have those conversations. But then what I was gonna say was, so I was still working in clinic part-time, and then I ended up deciding to do the founder of Train Heroic, which is the app that I use. He actually reached out to me and was like, hey, like, have you ever thought about doing a subscription? And so I ended up starting a subscription. So essentially it's just strength and conditioning programming.
Yeah.
Form and function is what it's called, and it was essentially like my style of programming, but it's ongoing. And so it's an opportunity for people. Like, I've had people who have had injuries that I did not work with me for one-on-one be like, I don't have any pain anymore. And I'm not saying it's for that, because it's definitely
Sure.
not. But like sometimes you just need to like have a good solid program. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it's people's programming that's the problem. And like since I am a PT, like obviously like, I can direct people, or like, if I know someone in person that I can refer them to, like I feel like I have a massive network of PTs that I know because I went to a hybrid program with people all over the country.
Yeah.
Also, I'm in this online space. So it's really cool because I feel like these people are like vetted somewhat as clinicians.
Yeah.
So I can send people if I know someone in their area. And if not, then I like potentially work with them remotely.
Sure.
Um, so now I just kind of ended up, I left my job and I took more clients one-on-one, and then I'm just sort of building the subscription, and it's really cool. Like I really enjoy just having this like big ecosystem of like being able to serve people in different ways, different tiers, for different needs, but also just like different like pricing structures for what people can afford. Because like I said, like sometimes you just need good programming. And so what I'm doing now is I do see people in person. Oh, that was something I was going to say. So literally the time that I told my boss that I was going to leave, I found out from a friend of mine who is a chiropractor that there was a powerlifting and bodybuilding gym that was going to open like 10 minutes from my house. And they were looking for a PT to rent space. And so I was like, okay, cool, I'll go talk to them. And the owner is just this like awesome guy. And we like hit it off right away. And that's where I'm renting space now. So when I do see people in person, which I do, it's the majority of my work is definitely
Yeah.
remote. And then the people that I do see in person, a lot of them are hybrid. So I'm seeing them like once a month, and then doing like we're working,
Perfect.
which I find is really effective. Like because you get so many more touch points. Like you actually
Well,
get to connect with people more.
talk about that for a second, because I feel like a lot of people out there are hesitant. There's kind of two misconceptions, I think, when people come to work with us. One, like they see us as the company that helps you build a virtual business.
Mm.
Like that's not really what we do. And two, they kind of see it as like it's either a virtual offer or an in-person offer, and they separate them. But you very much, when you're talking about this hybrid, this blended offer, like talk a little bit about somebody who's executing this boots on the ground. Like, why is this such a valuable, mechanism to serve the client?
Yeah, so it's like the best of both worlds because the limitations of each are really covered by the other. So like for example, say I get like a new in-person client, I do their initial eval, we do that in person. It's usually, 75 minutes to 90
Yeah,
minutes, because there's a lot of stuff to cover. And then from there, like what I'm doing is, they're obviously struggling with an injury. And so we're addressing their injury with rehab, but then I'm also taking over all of their programming. And the reason why that's really beneficial is because sometimes you can, give someone all these exercises to like add on top of their routine, but then say they don't mention that they're like going to the gym and just like doing all this crazy stuff. And
yeah,
you just have so much less control when you're only seeing someone like once a week or twice a week. And especially if it's in like a setting where you're like seeing five other patients at the same time, or like pass them off to a PTA,
sure.
which like PTAs are great, don't get me wrong, but like you should see the same practitioner, I
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
personally. Like I just think that makes sense. And I think a lot of clients would agree, because they don't have to explain themselves all the time.
100%. It shouldn't be a game of catch up every time we come in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
especially if you have 25 minutes. Like,
yeah,
doesn't make any sense
yeah,
whatsoever. But anyway, and what's nice about like working in that, like, taking over their programming is on the app that I use. I know most of your clients use True Coach. I use Train Heroic. That's just because I was already using it.
yeah. No
And I
problem
really
there.
like that. The app is like really nice for team stuff, especially. But like we can connect like throughout the week, like I'm messaging them every day at some point if they need something. They can send me videos for form checks, like so that we don't have to, like, again, playing catch up can be with a different person or with the same person if you're just not able to really like see as much day to day when you're only seeing them so often. And it's not appropriate for everyone.
For
But I
sure.
definitely see the most success with clients that do that. Like they get better the fastest, and they just like feel the most like they're getting the most value. Because while it's obviously more expensive to like have, an in-person, I do one in-person visit a month usually.
Mhm.
Sometimes people will start with more and then we'll kind of like bridge into less, but that's typically what it is because I'm doing their rehab and their programming.
Well, it's truly customizable, right? It's like I can give you the exact dose of in-person work that you need and the exact dose of virtual management that you need.
Yep.
And ultimately, like you said, like they're paying for this messaging service, they're paying for access, they're paying for connection. They're really paying for certainty.
Mhm.
Having you on the other side of the software saying, hey, this is a good decision, keep moving forward.
Yep.
And I think that's the thing that a lot of people struggle with is they're like, well, isn't that expensive for programming? And it's like, it's not for programming. Like I promise you guys, the programming is the least important part of it. It is the management of expectations and the management of the client that
Mhm.
happens through the programming. Like I
Yes.
know that seems like a roundabout way of saying the programming is valuable, but it's really your thought process that makes this valuable. And like you said, best of both worlds, being able to provide them with a really efficient way of managing and manufacturing more touch points with your clients.
Yeah, and what's also good, and I think this is so valuable for working with any person, is it brings awareness to the client because they are able to, like, they're communicating with you more regularly and they can kind of connect the dots between, like, maybe habits of theirs that are not serving them.
Yes.
Because on the app too, like you're tracking readiness, you're tracking like all recovery, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but also like we're tracking your loads over time. So, if you have a flare up, then we're gonna, modify range of motion or modify the variation or like back off the load a little bit. Like there's just so many, like there's so much data that is being tracked that I think is so valuable. And it just isn't possible when you're in a different setting. And I'm not saying that like regular PT in an insurance-based clinic is dead because it's
No,
definitely
it's
not. And
not.
it definitely serves a ton of people, but there's other people that just are not going to get what they need in that setting. And so I truly believe like we're at like a crossroads of like just it's just different things for different people who have different goals.
Well,
And it'll become less, less like of a financial hurdle for people when they realize like, oh, this is just what we pay for. This is what is done for this kind of PT, you know?
Well, and a lot of these clinics that I think are stuck in the one way of doing things, they're saying things like, we want to create autonomy with our clients. We don't want clients that are reliant on us. We want our clients to learn how to self-regulate.
Mhm.
Yet, when we bring them into the clinic, we are literally removing the opportunity for a lot of that to happen. And so if you really are kind of in this movement, optimist uh progression, there's no better way to reinforce these behaviors to get your clients to actually learn about their training decisions, to get your clients to actually go and execute a session on their own. And yeah, maybe they do flare up, but guess what? They could flare up in your clinic too. Like, and
Mhm.
it's no different with how you manage that process. And so I just think for anybody out there that's like hesitant about this transition, like I just want you to know that a lot of the things that you believe in become more true when you adopt this service mechanism.
Mhm. Totally agree.
Um, what is kind of what do you feel like, your life is like now? Now that you are out of the traditional model, and look, we talk with a lot of people who are in traditional models. They like their coworkers, they like their clients, but they're financially capped, or they just don't want to work 40
Yeah.
hours a week when there's more efficient ways to generate revenue. The online world, software, internet has made generating revenue more efficiently such a such an accelerant in the process. So what is your life like now that you don't have to be, stuck in a dark box for 40 plus hours a week, that you have some flexibility? Talk a little bit about how things are different for you now.
Yeah, so I was telling you before today is the day before Halloween, and I'm making some treats that my husband
Nice.
will take credit for. So just I would say like time freedom is huge. And while I will say like if you work for yourself, you choose how much you work, but then obviously, you have to put in that the work just like any other job.
Yep.
Like I'm not working like less or less hard. I'm just working differently, I guess.
Yeah.
But like I have the flexibility to do things on my own time, but I definitely don't think it's for everyone because you need to be very like autonomous and good at time management and able to, roll with the punches with things sometimes.
Yeah.
And
You gotta learn discipline and structure
yes,
for
and get
sure.
up when you fall on your face, which happens all the time.
Yeah.
Um, and just again, realize those ducks are never going to be in a row. So you just got to do the thing. And then I would say, like, salary wise, like making money wise, way better position, like
Yeah.
multiply my original salary by a lot more. That
Yeah.
is really nice to have. And I'm also like doing things, I'm not saying like my way is the best way, but like I get to do things the way that I think is valuable for people and people can get what I offer. Like I have the time, I have the capacity to provide value in a way that I really am passionate about. And I think a lot of the time, like a lot of the PTs that I talk to, because I do talk to a lot like in my DMs, because they're
Sure.
like I am so burned
Curious
out.
about what you do. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because they're like, what the hell are you doing? And I usually direct them to Ray. But
Appreciate it.
just I feel inspired on the daily. And I think
Yeah.
also just because I am seeing less patients in person, like I mean, I do definitely get, screen fatigue because I work a lot on a computer now. There's definitely like, not everything is like sunshine and rainbows. I'm definitely like, there's downsides to it too. But like I feel like I can really connect with people when I have more time and I'm just like touch points with them more often. So that's been really cool. And I just feel like I can really make a difference to people. And again, like I said, like I have kind of a different, like I have a ecosystem of offers that I have. So I can help people in different capacities, which I think is really fun.
Yeah.
Um, and then most recently, I'm 14 weeks pregnant.
Congrats.
Actually, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Ray already knew that, but so that's another thing that I wanted to work for myself because
Yeah.
I want to be able to like
This is huge.
be with my baby and that it just happened. Like I truly believe everything happens for a reason. When it happens, there's a reason why, even if you don't feel ready, like we're never given anything we can't handle. So I'm so grateful that I took the leap last year and
Yeah.
just decided I was going to figure it out because I'm really proud of how far I've come and I'm excited for what is to come. And I'm excited that I will have the ability to like make my schedule what I need to in order to spend time with the baby that's going to be here in the spring. So,
So amazing. I don't think anybody looks back at their business and says like, I wish I would have started later.
yeah,
Like because
yeah.
it's just like investing in the stock market. Like the longer you're in the market, the better your returns are going to be. And I think especially for, those of you who want to be able to be present in your kids' lives in a different way, who want to be able to go to the soccer games, spend time with them during the day, take them to school, be home for bedtime. Like this is a model that allows that, and it's not uncommon that we have clients, making in a week what they would make in a month, in 2 months, working a traditional outpatient orthopedic job. Like just because the opportunity is so much more abundant for the control. The biggest thing that I noticed when I started, truly and fully working for myself was like a lot of my stress was just tied to not being in control of my time and not being in control of my life and having other people create problems for me that it then was my job to solve. And I don't think I realized that until I truly, went all in on myself. And I think that for a lot of you out there that are kind of on the fence, like you kind of have to jump before you're ready and just expect that a net is going to be there rather than wait for the net to appear.
Yep.
Big time, big time.
100% agree. Yeah, we create our own problems for ourselves now.
That's the way to do it though, because now I know who to be mad at.
Yes, yes, right. And we can change things if we need to. But yeah, I would say like I've said 1,000 times in this conversation, like you're never gonna feel ready.
Yeah,
But like, I think if you genuinely have, like, if you know you are more passionate than what your job is letting you do, you have ideas that, you're not able to really fulfill and you like truly want to help people. If you're willing to like put your boots on the ground and work and like
you'll
put in
figure it
the
out.
hours and like provide something valuable, because like social media, I mean, it's a terrible place, but it's also a really great place. Like I've made
Yeah,
a ton of great connections there. Like it's important to have a presence because otherwise I mean, it's really hard to build an online business if you don't have an online presence.
100%. 100%. We could go on. Maybe that's a conversation for a whole nother day
Yeah.
is the
Um,
online side.
yeah. Doesn't
Anything
need
that
a
you
massive following. You just need a loyal one. Just gonna say
hmm but it is easier when you have a big one that is loyal, like you had. I mean, you did have a you had an excellent asset there that was a product of you just being consistent over a long period of time. And I think the biggest difference here that we generally see is the lag time to meaningful revenue for most people that don't have a big following or big social media presence is so much faster when you
Mhm.
go the in-person route first and then you
Mhm.
build the virtual component on top of that rather than when you start with the virtual component, just because it takes so long to build trust. It
Yeah.
takes so long to build trust online. So any kind of words of wisdom, parting words that you'd like to leave as we kind of get close to the end here?
Yeah. So like on that note, so just if it's helpful for anyone, I don't know if this is like encouraging or discouraging, but like I was consistent for 3 years before
Yeah.
like my following really grew. But I would say like think of it'll be just you'll be discouraged like on the daily, but I would say
Yeah.
again, just remember why you want something different for yourself and look to the people who are doing it. Like that's why I reached out to Tyler and why I reached out to Ray, because I was like, I don't know what like how to get from point A to point B. And like no one is going to be an exact replica of someone else. So like
Yep.
you'll make it your own. But once you've kind of done that, you'll look back on the journey and realize like there were so many things that you learned from all those people that, were ahead of you. And like, I truly believe that this space is only going to grow. And so I'm really happy to be a part of it. And I'm happy to help give people hope that are like these great clinicians. Like, we should not all be rotting in clinics, you know?
Yes.
So, and it's
And
just, it's a bummer. It's just our healthcare system, but
and
it's
there's
just,
opportunity out there for you, right? Like you just have to realize that if you really want it, like you have to take it, you have to control it. Megan, thank you so much for your time. If people want to follow you, want to reach out, where are kind of the best ways for them to do that, both, virtually and locally?
Yeah, so virtually, you can just reach out to me on Instagram. I'm very responsive to my DMs. My handle is at doctor, so dr.megsi, MEGSI .dpt. And then as far as in person, I work out of a gym called Iron Temple, and that is in Puyallup, Washington. If you are in the general vicinity, I would always just reach out to me on Instagram. But if you're
Yeah,
in this area and you want to do an in-person session, or work together in person, I would love to chat.
awesome. We'll make sure that all that information is down below. If you have questions for me and are inspired by Megan's story, you can always reach out to me on Instagram at Ray Gorman DPT. If you want to learn more about what my company does, head over to engagemovement.com. We have a ton of free resources there for you. And you can download them, you can reach out on Instagram. We'd be happy to see if, we're a good fit to kind of help you out. Megan, thank you so much. I not only appreciate your time here, but I appreciate all the hard work that you've put in our time together, your trust as a client, and I'm looking forward to just seeing what this next phase of life looks like for you. So truly appreciate you.
Thank you, Ray. Same to you.
Thanks.